Okay, started. So hello again, those who are here now and those who are watching the recording. And it's nice to see you all. And as I said, it's nice to have new people and it's nice to have people who are returning. I hope you don't mind the pandas. Actually, it's quite cold here. We are having, well, an interesting weather because we used to be used to it way back, but then for a few decades, the winters they were, well, quite mild, more rainy than snowy. And now this year is something out of the ordinary. So, we're bracing ourselves, but yeah, so I hope to have this cozy meeting with you this evening. So that's why, warm and cozy. Okay, so we'll start. I'll share my slides. And as I said, if you have questions, let me know. And if you are listening to the recording, then you can email me, okay? Or comments just in the comment section on YouTube. Earlier, we used to have these lectures, meetings on YouTube actually. But as it became quite problematic with YouTube, and there were some problems, and sometimes it wouldn't let have the translation properly, and there were, these interruptions. So I thought, okay, let's do it on Zoom, and then I upload the recordings on YouTube, so it's easy to watch if you want to come back to some things. And what else I wanted to say? I'm not sure. So we're starting. Oh, I wanted to ask if you can hear me well. Isn't the sound good? That's probably the most important thing. So let me know in the chats, and then we're starting. Okay, waiting a second.
This fight was passed down to us.
Good on. Okay, thank you, Paul. So today we have this, well, quite self-explanatory topic, introduction to Lithuanian genealogy. And although, it's kind of clear that it's introductory, maybe it's unclear what I'm actually going to talk about. So I want to give you this kind of perspective of what to, what to hope for when you start this journey. Well, many of you are actually have already started, and I bet that there are at least a few people who already participated in this specific session. But nonetheless, I hope that no matter the situation, you will hear maybe an idea or a sentence that will give you some inspiration in your research. But when you just start your research, it's sometimes unclear what you will be able to find, and is it possible at all? So I want to give you some clarity. Before that, for the new people, so people who are coming back, sorry, but I need to say a few things about myself. You have already heard it for the new people. Just some of my story so that you kind of get the gist of why I'm giving this lecture and other lectures. So actually, my story is that I haven't been that interested in genealogy when I was a teenager. I was thinking, why would people do that? Do they want to learn some old names of people who are long gone? The typical thinking, and sometimes people ask you probably, why are you doing this? It doesn't matter, they are dead and that's it. You probably heard that. I did, definitely. So, that was my thinking. But I had some good teachers actually, and they tried to get us interested in that. And I tried some things. I took my first interview of my grandpa, which I'm really glad about because later he got dementia, and it wouldn't have been possible to add to these things. So I have this first recording, which was 10 years ago. And I got interested both later, a few years later. And now the family tree, actually, this is not updated. It reaches in this one tiny branch to the 16th generation. It's a noble branch. I have, many hours of audio recording, thousands of pictures for my own family. And after some time of doing the research, I started seeing that these people are kind of struggling, and to figure out how to use the archives, how to find some documents. you need to put really a lot of research. And if there is no one to help you who has already done that, then it takes a lot of time. So that's when I decided to give my first lecture in my local community. So that's how it started. And well, actually, only after some time I started doing this in English because um, I saw the need that, you know, I saw the need of helping people navigating the resources that are not in English. Many of them aren't in English, and it's kind of a brick wall. You have your names from maybe the passenger list. You don't even know how to go through that. Some people are saying that someone is not muted. Is it still a problem? I cannot hear anything, but if there is a problem, let me know if it's still there. Okay. Yes. Okay. I will try and see. One second. Okay. Muted. Good. So now let's continue. So yeah, the idea was that it's difficult for people to go through this brick wall of not being able to, go from the English altered or altered version of the name to the Lithuanian records, documents, anything, any information. And yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Already for in English for a year. Yeah, in English for a year, in Lithuanian for probably 2 years and a half. I've been doing educational programs, private and open lectures, consulting, and the topics of my work are getting to know one's roots, family genealogy, Lithuanian heritage, traditions. We have some of the lectures about traditions too. Okay. Main principles of good. Okay. Main principles of these meetings that we do. Sometimes we do more interactive meetings. Sometimes it's just lectures. Are these? And I have never had a problem, to be honest. But just to be safe, no politics. Respect each other. And one of the main principles that I try to base my work on, both in my research and in the lectures, is accepting history exactly as it is. Because we might not like something that happened in the past. There were different choices that our ancestors made, as we do too. And some of them might be controversial. Some of them might be, we might think, okay, this is not good. Why did they do that? So if we start judging them, then it becomes really difficult to continue the research. We kind of cannot go past this. So I think that it's important to think that, this already happened. It's in the past. I cannot change it. I can learn from it. And I don't know what circumstances led this person to do it. And it gives us kind of a little bit different perspective to history. Because in every family, we have ancestors who were harmed by someone. And then we have people who harmed others. And what do we do about it? There is this saying that we are all a villain in someone's story. So we just need to accept that in our family tree, in our family history too. And now we are going into the topic of today's, sorry, I have a cat. We are going to the topic of today's meeting, of today's lecture, which is Introduction to Lithuanian Genealogy. So let's start with this. What is actually genealogy? So if we think about the official term, we would need to talk about Greek, which would mean the science about family. Gene plus logos in Greek. This is what it means. But if we'd go a little bit wider or deeper or both, we'd need to think about more things. And some people say, that genealogy should be only collecting the facts. So this is when person was born, this is when they got married, this is when they had children, and then they passed away. But then there is this other perspective of thinking about family stories, family lore, the memories, the pictures, all the things that relate to family. And I actually like this this approach, that family history is everything. It's everything about our ancestors, it's our heritage, it's our culture, even traditions, that are passed down through generations. I think it's important to get to know all of that to understand our family history. So that's what we are trying to do, right? And I understand that, as I said, there is a stopping point for people who have ancestors. You know that you have ancestors that were Lithuanian or some, other nation. And then there is a point where you need to stop if you don't know how to go further, because you have no idea where they were from, for example, or you have no idea how their name should be spelled in Lithuanian, or where to look actually. And I'll just give you like an Easter egg. This right now, if the passenger list says that your ancestor was from Kaunas, it doesn't mean that they were from Kaunas, okay? Because it might mean that they were from um, Kaunas governorate, which was huge territory. So it is like an administrative unit from the time when Lithuania belonged to the Russian Empire. And it was this huge territory, and that's what they did. It was the first line of the address, and they would just put Kaunas, and that was it. Also, until some point in time, they wouldn't even say that the person was Lithuanian. They would say Russia, and then they would give an address, maybe. Sometimes, well, on a very rare occasion, it is a correct village, but it's very rare. Typically, they will just give something like a bigger town name, and very often it is Kaunas. So just, so that you have it in mind that if you don't have an exact address in Kaunas, it's not Kaunas. Okay? So the idea is this: it's possible to go past the stopping point. It's possible to, wait for the green light, actually. And I'll try to tell you now, what are the ways? What are the opportunities, possibilities? What can you do if you start Lithuanian genealogy journey? And actually, everyone has the right to get to know their roots. And it just, takes some time to figure out how to go further and how to start. So, how do we start? First, we should start from a question: what do I personally know about my family history? I tell this to everyone. And also, I tell to everyone that the first thing that we should do is this writing exercise. I think that writing by hand is actually your best friend in genealogy. And we all probably have all these, small charts that we try to make, and we have some notes that we, write down. But I think it's important to specifically write by hand, not just type something in our notes on in our phones, but just by hand. And my advice is to spend an hour or two and write down everything, like literally everything that you can remember about your family. And sometimes people say, I don't know anything. So then I say, okay, write down gossip, everything that you have heard. We don't like gossip, it's not good, it's not nice. Okay, but in genealogy, sometimes it can have some, it can be based on the truth. So we can figure out this later if it was true or false. But it's something to start, it's something to start from. Again, and some people say, but this is maybe more here in Lithuania. They say, I already know enough, I don't need to learn more. So then I say, okay, do this exercise. You'll see. Then, you might figure that, okay, I don't know that much. But, in this case, it's a good starting point, because when we um, put all this information in this physical form, we see it in front of our eyes, then we might remember there was a town mentioned in all the family stories, or a name. There was some aunt, we don't know her last name, but maybe it's something to start from. So this is the first step. Of course, the next step would be ask family. And sometimes it might be difficult because maybe we don't have the older generation people anymore with us, or maybe there are no close relationships in the family. So well, that's challenging, but we might need to reach out to someone. Sometimes it could be a sibling, sometimes it could be a cousin. Sometimes our cousins, even if they are of the same age, might have more information than us. Maybe they have done some research already, so that needs to be done. Another thing is that sometimes we try to ask these really specific questions, like when was this person born and where were they from? So if it is a person of elderly age, it might make things complicated for them. They might say, I don't remember, or I don't know. So I always say it's really wise to ask contextual questions. Not only, when was your mom born? But maybe you should ask, what was your childhood like? Do you know if your parents knew how to read? Um, do you know if they went to school? Do you know what was their life like? Do you know if they were affected by war? And then people start telling you stories, and in these stories, they might mention the fact that you're looking for. And also, as a side benefit, you also understand the family life better, the ancestors' life. You kind of get it more, how it was actually for them. So I think that needs to be done too. And then what's next? Well, then of course we look for someone in the family who might have documents or photographs. If you don't have them, maybe someone else does. We take pictures of those, we scan them, whatever. So there we might see some of the facts that might be important for us. So maybe we'll see a date, like a birth date or a death date, something that can help us to start. And then we will go to the online resources, which will be the most important for you. If you come to Lithuania, you can also visit the archive physically, but majority of the documents that you'll need, they will be available online, actually. So there are websites, there are digital archive systems, and there are online communities. So what can we find there? So first, on the digital archive systems, the main one is called EAIS, which would be Electronic Archive Information System. And it's the same both in English and in Lithuanian, the abbreviation is the same. And we can find vital documents, vital records. So that would be birth records. Well, they are actually baptism records. If we talk about Christian records, but it's similar to other religions too. Like you can find Jewish records, you can find, if we talk about, the majority of the records we have is Catholic, but we also have Lutheran records. You might find also Orthodox records, so different things of different communities, but I'll kind of use Catholic Church now as an example because majority of them were Catholic, although we don't have a state religion, but still, the biggest community is Catholic community to this day, although now we kind of, well, are becoming secular, but back in the day, most of the people were Catholic. So birth records, we have marriage records, we have death records. Then we have different types of censuses. What do I mean by that? So many of you are from the States, and I know that I don't know how it's now, but they used to do the censuses every 10 years, yes? Here it wasn't kind of like that. And there are state censuses that, well, some lists that survived. So the last one that can be accessed without GDPR restrictions would be 1942, done by Germans. And it's not online yet, but you can kind of order copies from the archive. Also, there is this one volunteer database that is in the process of, being filled in. But that's the last one that we kind of can access without any restrictions. Then there was, if we go back, there was one in 1923. Well, that one, it was the only one in the interwar period of independent Lithuania. And it would be exciting, yes, but there is a but. No one knows where all those census cards went. None of them survived. Like, no one knows where they are. If they were destroyed, if they were taken away to some other country, it's unclear. They don't exist kind of here, in Lithuania. We have this kind of statistics book, which tells us how many people lived in this and this village or town, but the actual lists, the actual cards, or so to speak, they are not there. So, oh, that's sad. Then we have some cards, some census cards that survived from the census of 1897, which was Russian Empire time. And then all the other ones that kind of we have kind of some of the documents are smaller ones. We have parishioners lists, we have lists of the people who live in a specific manor's territory, like the state, territory. Then we have some revision lists, which are the oldest that survived. So those are from 18th, 19th century, and they are kind of put in categories. Some of them are just, this is a nobility list from this territory. This is peasants. This is townspeople. So all these different things. But the state censuses, not that many. Then we have other documents. So other documents might include, if we talk about 20th century, we might find someone's application to receive a passport or driver's license, etc. And so on. We might find some land-related documents. And then we have online resources where we can access information on deportation, graves, surnames, etc. So that's kind of the whole picture. Of course, there are many, many types of all the resources, but so that you understand the situation, that they exist, they are available. Now, before we try to find people in those resources, because there are some databases that you can just, fill in the name and the surname, and you need to know, and you probably know that, but just so it's really clear that many, many names and surnames were altered. So I'm just showing you a few examples now of name alterations. So, of course, if it's John, then it was Jonas. If it's Anthony, then it was Antanas, and so on. Also, many changes were made to the surnames. Some of them just removed the diacritic marks, because we have these like letter E with a dot, or we have like Z with the stick mark. So these are diacritic marks, and they represent specific sounds in Lithuanian language. We'll talk about that in Lithuanian Genealogy 101. Well, it's quite a topic. But sometimes they used to colonize the surname. So, for example, in my family, there were people who were Bacevičius in Lithuanian, and then they became Bacevich, although they went to the States. But they kind of, and I am pronouncing it in a Polish manner, kind of, like in a Slavic pronunciation. But I guess they pronounce them a little bit differently in the States in English. It's difficult for me to, imagine to kind of transfer it to American pronunciation. But they used the Polish suffix, and that happened quite a lot. So, for example, there is this surname Vyšniauskas, and some people became Vyšnievski. So that doesn't mean that they were Polish. For some reason, many of the surnames were changed in this Polish manner. Probably it sounded more foreign. I don't know. So that's what used to happen. Also, some of the surnames were abbreviated. So the same Bacevičius, some of the people became Butz. Butz. I don't know, for some reason. Yeah. So we need to have this in mind, and then we kind of need to recover the actual original form. After that, we can start using the databases, we can start looking in the records, etc. So we need to mention archives, of course. So actually, we have 9 archives in Lithuania, but in the beginning, the 3 first ones mentioned here are the most important. So we'll start with the archive of history, then there is central, then there is special. Special archive includes documents from 20th century occupation period. So for example, maybe you had some family deported. And then we have regional archives, and they have other types of documents. Basically, history archive includes all the church records, also some Jewish records, some Lutheran records, some Orthodox records. Central Archive mostly deals with 20th century documents. So when you use the system, the EAIS, that again is a topic of the Lithuanian Genealogy 101, quite a complicated topic, but it's possible to learn to use the system. When you learn, then it becomes quite easy. Although it's annoying because sometimes it's not working well, but most of the time it does. So, the history archive and all the other archives, they use the same system, that they put digital documents in. So, then you can figure out that they say this document is from the history archive. Yeah. So you might have a question, where do I start looking? How do I know where to start looking? So again, another small exercise is to kind of think of the events that are reflected in your family history. So if there was, if someone participated in a war, specific war, maybe it's World War One, or if it's maybe a Russo-Japanese war that they were conscripted to. Maybe you have just heard that someone was conscripted to the Tsar army, or if someone participated in an uprising. So all these things, but also, what things about national culture or history or folk art, folklore, music are reflected in your family history. Maybe you have heard a song in your childhood. Sometimes even a song can help, because songs, they kind of reflect a specific region. Um, what you remember about the habits from your family, or some traditions, because also some specific traditions apply to a specific region. So all this can help, and it kind of can give you a picture of your family history. So you can also write these things down, what you remember. And then the things that are kind of encoded in your ancestry, they can help you both to research your family and research your culture, which is, I believe, also a thing that people want to do. So they are actually really connected. And it's one thing if we just, find out about a nice folk song, but it's another thing if we are able to find the song that you have heard in your childhood, that your maybe grandma used to sing. So I feel it's important to connect both of those things. And you might, have question, what does it mean to be Lithuanian? You might see these videos that someone talks about the language, someone shows you like some folk art, someone sings a song. But an answer to this question would be different for all of us. Doesn't matter if we are local, or if you have roots, there, if you just visit Lithuania. Um, we might have our own understanding of what it means to be Lithuanian. However, you know, if we think about this kind of ethnographic identity, nowadays we have kind of these set ethnographic regions. They used to be quite different. And the historic region of, for example, Žemaikytė, which is red here, Žemaikytė and Lithuanian, it used to have different borders. It was more to the right, if we look at the map, and then Aukštaitija again, more to the right. But now we have these ethnographic regions, which were kind of set based on the traditions, dialects, and also each of them have their own national costume. So in a few moments, I will show you a few examples, but now I just want to tell you what the regions are in this, well, modern map. So I mentioned Žemaikytė, the red one. Then, so basically Žemaitija in Lithuanian could be kind of translated as lowlands, although in the modern region, it's not quite true. If you look at the historic region, then yes, it would be true. Then we have Aukštaitija, the green one, so it would be highlands. Again, if they would go more to the right, it would be more true, but this is the name of the region. The blue region is called Lithuania Minor, and it's kind of also a historic term because this territory used to belong to Prussia and Germany, but there were always a lot of Lithuanians living there, although the culture of these Lithuanians who lived in the territory of Prussia, it was different, you know. And to this day, if you find a Lutheran person who was passed down the traditions from their family who lived in this region historically, you'll see that they are different. They have different traditions, everything. Then we have the light yellow Suvalkija. Sometimes it's translated to English as Sudovia because this kind of historic name is Sudva. Then we have the orangish something like, you know, say something like yellow-orange region, which is called Dzūkija. Very interesting dialect, actually, even for, you know, for a Lithuanian person. So these are the 5 regions. Then if we talk about the clothing and the national costumes, historic clothing, you can see some of the examples how some women, they were prepared to go to the church. So you see there, you know, these plaid skirts, there are these scarves, they have their, yeah, so the scarves, also the jackets, you know, this is kind of traditional. But if we look at the costumes were actually kind of created by, well, actually by artists in the interwar period. So they kind of took example from the historic clothing, the traditional clothing, but they were kind of made through artistic approach. And each region has their own costume, and each costume comes in variations. If I need to compare this to another country, I would compare to Latvian situation, where Latvians, when they created their costumes, they had, well, basically in Lithuania, artists created their costumes. In Latvia, historians and archaeologists created their costumes. And each little town and village, they have their specific costume based on archaeological findings and on historical clothes. So it's different. You look at the costume and you know where this person is from. In Lithuanian, no. I comment each region in the course, but just, you know, to give you some perspective. Even if you live in the States and your family members had some costumes, it might be that they weren't authentic because people just tried to have something Lithuanian. And if they maybe had someone made the costume, it might be that they used the materials just that they had. In Soviet times, for example, it was extremely difficult to have an authentic costume because, well, it was kind of encouraged to have this ethnographic approach somewhat, because they didn't want people to go to the church. So then, you just have this folk kind of ethnographic thing, but it was all kind of altered and a little bit destroyed in the process. And they used to have these kind of butchered costumes for some ensembles that were there, like ethnographic ensembles, to sing the songs, etc. But they butchered the costumes, and the materials were of really poor quality, and they didn't adhere to these rules set in the interwar period. So now it's kind of, the independent period, it's a revival of the actual national costume, and you can look and see and understand that this is from the Soviet period, and this is sewn after, when people came back to what the actual national costume should look like. Okay. And then also I mentioned that dialects relate to the ethnographic regions, although the linguistic approach, you can see that they kind of divided the dialects into these really small areas, and there are even smaller division actually. So what you see now is subdialects depicted on a map, but there is also this, I don't know how to say it in English, it's like subdialects. So then you can, have really small areas. I'll just inform you that if you draw on your screen, then everyone can see it, okay? I keep deleting it, but someone just starts drawing something. Okay, so just so you have this, kind of idea of how people understand who they are in Lithuania, although not all people speak in dialects, especially if they live in Vilnius or Kaunas, because in towns it's kind of a mixture, and some people speak in it, and then other people kind of took over the state language, which was kind of the rules were set again. It started in 1901. The first grammar was published, and then kind of in the interwar period, it was kind of established that this is our state language that everyone needs to know. So it's different from the dialects. Okay. So that was kind of like a break from genealogy, but I feel it's kind of also important to hear about these things, how we understand identity, and also why do I show you this? I mentioned the state language, that if you go to a Lithuanian course, or you come to Lithuania and you have a course of Lithuanian language, you will learn the state language. But that doesn't mean that your ancestors spoke in that language. That means that they spoke in some dialect. So again, some different aspects to being Lithuanian and having Lithuanian ancestry. So I do this thing. When I speak about this, I also send the participants some examples of how some dialects sound. So if you'd like, when I send the recording, because I'll send it to everyone, I can actually add some links. So you can listen afterwards how different dialects sound, the songs, the speech, and you will be able to compare. Okay? Good. So let's go back to genealogy research, which kind of also connects to everything else. So how do we do it? I'd say that the wise plan would be, well, the ideal plan would be this. Of course, in real life, it doesn't happen according to plan. You just start doing something and then it connects to something else, and it's kind of a mad map, but that's how we do it. But the ideal plan would be to write down what you know, then ask family. If you speak to a family member, really try to record everything they say. Like you can use your phone, there are apps, but or some people have these, I don't know how you call it, a recorder, yes, a recorder. And because if we try to write everything down, we will not have enough time for that. If we try to remember, we'll not remember. And when I listen to my great grandma sisters memories. I have them recorded many, many hours. And every time I listen, I hear something new. And I'm like, okay, I was there. How did I not hear this? Or I don't remember this because I was focusing on something else. And now I'm focusing on something new. So it's really helpful to have the recordings. Then, of course, going through family pictures and documents. And then there are online resources. So we have archive documents and information. Then we have other types of documents. And then we have additional sources. So it might seem complicated. If you saw the records, and did not want to scare you now. I will not show you now the records because I feel if you go step by step, then it's not so scary anymore. So you need to go step by step. So it might seem complicated. And well, it is. It is complicated, even for a person who knows Lithuanian or knows the languages of the records. And I can tell you in advance that, for example, the records that we have, they are not indexed. There are a few initiatives by the volunteers, and there are some records indexed, but it's like a really small percent. And then all the other ones, they're just put online, and you kind of just go page by page, just go page by page, and you read them. And you might have a question, what do I do if I don't know the language? So although the records that we have mostly are in Russian, Polish, Latin, and then only after the independence in Lithuanian, it is possible to understand where you need to look for the names, for the locations, even in Cyrillic, it is possible. People, they manage to do that. At first, by the recognition of the shape of the name, and later maybe you can learn the Cyrillic alphabet just to understand what is the letter. And then if you know the structure, then it's all right. But you need to learn how to do it. And all the other things, well, you'll figure out how to use mm, the websites. Some of them have English option, some of them don't, but they are pretty self-explanatory. And it is really, it's possible. It's complicated, and both it's possible to do it. It will take time, a lot of time. And well, if you are here, you know that you have probably been doing some family genealogy already. It's um, it's a hobby or a lifestyle that requires a lot of time and energy and also enthusiasm. Because sometimes people are like, okay, I would be interested, but I don't have time. We all have the same amount of time, so that means that you don't have the enthusiasm. So if you already have it in you that you really want to find this out, then it's all right, you know. And then it only takes some courage to start, because sometimes people, they listen through all the courses possible, and then they come to a meeting where we talk and they're like, okay, I listened to all of this, but where do I start? So I just say, just start somewhere, anywhere, any point, just, like spend half an hour to start in the beginning. And if it looks too overwhelming, just start half an hour a week. It's possible, right? Just half an hour a week, like on Sunday. Just spend half an hour trying to figure out the names, trying to use one website. And then it becomes easier. Okay? And I want to show you a few examples of where you can look for things. So first, I want to show you the Lithuanian cemetery database. And it's the main one. It doesn't include every cemetery in the country because, well, this might be surprising because I had people asking about this. People were saying, why so many? So we have 60 municipalities in Lithuania. We have 10 counties and 60 municipalities. It's a small country, but we have these administrative units. And each municipality, they purchase the services of this company if they want their cemetery digitized. Some municipalities decided to have their separate databases. So I'll also send you those links. But also, some of them are in the process now of putting the decrees in digital through this system. And you might not find everything yet, but you will. Like this year should be when they put them online. Some of them they already did after the new year. There's a longer list than before the new year of the cemeteries here. And again, this has actually an English option. This is in Lithuanian that I'm showing you, but they have an English option. Then the next website I want to share with you today is limis.lt. This website is basically collections of Lithuanian museums. They put everything online, all the bigger museums they need to digitize everything. That means that you can find like their archaeological findings too. But also you can find pictures and documents too. So you can try by putting the beginning of your family surname, for example, or the location if you know it, but skip the ending. Like, we have these endings of surnames like IS or AS, skip that. Because you probably know that Lithuanian surnames for men and women and unmarried women and married women, they differ. And also we have this thing of grammatical cases. So the endings of different grammatical cases, they also are different. So if you put it in just one grammatical case or just the male form of the surname, then you'll just receive the results of that. Only of the word mentioned in the title of the document or a picture, just in this grammatical case. So if you skip the ending, or in case of a surname, skip the suffix too, then you'll find all the results. So an example would be my name, Žemeikytė. This is my maiden name. So I would drop E, like the last letter, it's the ending. And then we have YT, which is suffix. So we drop that. It seems complicated now. It's easier in writing. But basically, just write the root of the word or the stem of the word. Okay? And then you can search for it. Also, it is possible to filter out the results based on the museums, but maybe it's at this step, it's a bit complicated if you don't know the map well, because, for example, Žemeikytė is big, and then there is the town Šiauliai, which is kind of on the border of Žemeikytė, but they have a lot of pictures from the whole territory. And and it's not maybe close to your town, like for example Plungė. It's not close, but they might have some pictures. So you need to know where to look. So in the beginning, just try to look based on the surnames and the locations. Another website that I wanted, well, this is a website of an archive, and I wanted to share this with you because I believe that there might be families of yours that maybe some people went through DP camps, displaced persons camps. So they were running away from the Soviet regime. In the beginning of the occupation, the second occupation. And it might be that they lived in DP camps and only then reached your country. So the documents related to that will be here, and also all the other documents of people who were victims of the Nazi regime. So that, for example, maybe some people were brought for the forced rebel, Osterbiters, to Germany, and then they went to DP camps, and maybe then they left for example, the States. It was easier to go to United States. So yeah, you can use their online search. If you don't find anything, you can apply for them to search their archive, and then you might receive some documents. So this could be useful. You might receive some primary information, and then you can go to the Lithuanian records. Also, I want to share with you the Lithuanian communities, Lithuanian genealogy communities, for, maybe you can get some help, some direction. You might find something in the files of a group. So this is on Facebook, and people say, well, Facebook might be outdated, but for genealogy, it's useful. So the first two, you might be a member of, they are in English. The bottom two, they are in Lithuanian. Domiuosi genealogija means I am interested in genealogy. And it's basically the main community group in Lithuanian, but some posts are in English. Sometimes people ask about things. Basically, if you post in English, you will still receive help, you know? Maybe you want to post about family, or you have a record that you found and you want a translation. Someone might help you at least to get the gist of things. So I really advise you to join that. And the bottom right one, actually I created for all pictures. So if you put a family name in the search, you might find something, or a location. Or you can post your pictures that you have, and maybe someone recognizes them. That happens. So, if you want an online community to share things with, it could be good. And also, you can join our community. Actually, it has more members now. This is an old screenshot. Strong Root Genealogy, Lithuanian Genealogy and Heritage. Also, I share some things, there. I share some stories, some tips, and also people share what they have found out about the culture, about their genealogy. So you could join that one too. And also, I'll add the links when I send the link list today. I will send you the links of some other Facebook groups based on the areas and topics. Okay, so if we think about all the resources that exist, well, it would be overwhelming to put them all in just one meeting. But actually, what we can find, it's just, I put this illustration because basically it's indefinite. You can find a lot of things, and you can just continue building your tree indefinitely. I'm sometimes saying, I will probably build my family tree for the rest of my life. And everyone, we can do it. You might want just to stop, like 7 generations, it's enough for some people. For me, well, probably I'll just continue and maybe someone then takes over. But actually, the possibilities are endless. We just need to figure out how. Yes. And I will share a few tips about how to put everything into order when we find the information. What do we do with the information? I just want to really quickly share with you some invitations to the upcoming lectures that you might find interesting. So the first course that I want to invite you to is Lithuanian Genealogy 101. And I mentioned that some of the things are explained in more detail there. It's just, it's not enough to talk about everything in one session. And sometimes I do these also free of charge sessions on a specific topic, then I can expand more. Like before the 1st of November, which is the 1st of November is All Saints Day, the 2nd of November is All Souls Day here in Lithuania. So before that, I usually offer this lecture called The Culture of Death in Lithuania. So we talk about death rituals, the tradition, all that. So sometimes, you'll find these sessions on a specific topic. But also I give these courses that connect several topics. So this one, you can see the list of topics: alphabet, name changes, border changes, funeral pictures. Why would they do that? Because it's one of the main questions that people have. Why would they take pictures of a funeral when they start, the research? We'll talk about some immigration stuff, resources for many things. Actually, there is a specific session dedicated to all the resources online that you can find. Well, not all, but many of them. You will receive a whole list. And then we have specific session dedicated to actually navigating the archive system, and then another session dedicated to analyzing the records, even if you don't know Lithuanian, Russian, Polish, and Latin. So you kind of I help you understand the structure of the records. So that would be the 101 course. And these are the dates, and all the sessions are recorded, just in case, if you can't join live. Then the ongoing course that we are having now, and there are still 3 sessions left, is called Lithuanian Genealogy 102. And it's not that important if you have it now and then 101. It's just there are different topics. So this would include Jewish and Lutheran, genealogy and research a little bit, some traditions of birth, wedding, and death, actually in detail. Then immigration, reasons, routes, ways to do it, how people would do it, and why. Then we are talking about nobility, actually next weekend. The states of realm, serfdom, the history of it, where to look for information, and then history of wars, uprisings, and occupation. This is 102. And next 2 sessions we're having 1st February and 7th February. And then there is this part 6, which is free to join. It is 8th of February for questions that people might have. So that one's free. You can register for it. You can register for the whole course and listen to the recordings of the first 3 sessions. So that's up to you. Okay. Again, clearing someone's drawings. Sorry. And then I'm really excited about the third one that's happening for the first time, Lithuanian Heritage and Culture course. And we have 5 parts. So this is more focused on the culture and the traditions. So for example, plants of field and garden, we are talking about some plants, and plants is actually a really important part in Lithuanian culture, both like trees and field plants, and picking, herbs, this tradition, but also what our grandmothers and great-grandmothers used to have in their gardens. Then part 2, people and nature, we are talking about the traditions of beekeeping, picking mushrooms and berries, and again, picking herbs. Part 3, we'll be talking about Lithuanian language, so the history of it, how Lithuanian language came to be. And I'm giving this lecture only for this fact that sometimes people really have a lot of misinterpretations about Lithuanian language. They say it is the oldest language in the world. It is not. I'll explain why and how it came to be. Lithuanian food, so we're talking about different types of products that are important in the Lithuanian culture, and then some dishes. And maybe, well, someone said that maybe I should include that, so maybe I'll include a few recipes, just the traditional ones, the typical ones. And then the final session is customs of the year. So we're talking about the whole circle of the celebrations that happens every year, or used to happen. Some of them we don't celebrate anymore. So that's so if you want to join those, after I finish the presentation, I will post the links in the chat, and I also send the links to the register after the session, after I upload the recording. So it will take a little bit of time, but I will send it soon. And you can choose if you want to participate in the whole thing or just a specific session, so that's up to you. And now I promise to share a few tips on how to organize the information. So first thing that I want to say is that we should always make copies. People sometimes really rely on just one way of saving information, like just in your computer or just on paper. And sometimes, it could be devastating if we lose it. So if you use an online platform for your tree, please have several options, or just keep downloading a getcom file, because sometimes systems get stuck. Also, I wouldn't put all your trust into Genie, for probably in English. We pronounce it Genie in Lithuanian, actually. So Genie, someone could make a mess out of your tree because anyone can edit it. So just, let's have that in mind. Let's have several trees. For example, my main tree is on my heritage, and then I have a secondary tree on Genie. Well, maybe keep downloading the file, and maybe have like a printed copy of the information. If you have only digital information, maybe have it in several hard drives so that nothing gets lost. That's my first tip. Also, a second tip would be to try and put everything into a form that is understandable to others. because usually when we start collecting the information, we have it all over the place, and only we can understand our notes and our files and everything. So the final product should be something that is understandable to others. So hopefully a tree, yes, but also maybe a book or a movie, or just maybe, a collection of records and, everything that is put into order, that anyone can open it and kind of understand it. So some way that could be understandable, and that's basically the rule of thumb, because it's difficult to say you should just, have these charts, or you should have a printed book, or you should have like a binder. We should do it in a way that is understandable to our brain first. And I'm saying this, well, from experience actually, because I met a woman who has these notebooks that she coded every page in them with a color, a letter, and a number, and she knows what is, which ancestor belongs to which page, and she has all information on them written down in these books. And I'm just not so a person that is so neat. So I will probably not do this in my lifetime, but maybe, I have some other ways to put the information. Many of the information I have is digital. I have also, started some other things, like we started this book when we had a family reunion. There are some information written down. There's some information written down. There are some pictures there, so that it's easy for people to comprehend, because who we are doing this for, of course, for ourselves, for our children, but basically for the future. We want our children and grandchildren and other people to have this information. So I think these two things are most important, that it's understandable for our brain, because if we'll need to force ourselves, we might just not do it. We'll keep postponing it. So a way that is, that we can manage, and then that it's understandable to others. Okay. And now it's time for your questions. So I'll stop sharing my slides and I'll come back to you. And now, yes, we'll go to your questions. So please, if you have questions, put them in the chat and we'll answer, well, hopefully all of them. And I see the first one. When we search, do we need to use an asterisk where the ending should be? No, just, skip it and that's it. You don't need an asterisk for that. Okay. Any other questions? Actually, now if you want, you can speak. Now it's fine if you unmute and if we can talk. And I will also be posting the links now. Here. What is the best way to find someone who will help in the specific region? You could post in the group and someone will recommend someone, but really pay attention, if the person, they have something on their website that seems legit, or if they have at least a Facebook page, because there are many people who say they are researchers, but they don't have anything about themselves. And there are some good researchers who are just, recommended to people by someone else, and they don't need a website maybe. But then you need to have a really strong recommendation, because I must say there are scammers. And they are good-looking scammers. Some of them have websites, and the stories that you might hear about them, even, for example, forging documents. Or there are these stories where, someone said, someone showed me a tree and they said, this is my tree. And she said, I asked them, where did you get this from? And they said, I purchased some research, they did this and they presented me this tree. And she said, I saw the mistakes that I had some time back on my Genie account. Now I corrected those mistakes, but someone just took the whole tree from my account and sold this to my relative. So, these things happen. So really be careful, especially when there is language barrier. just try to collect some information about the person who is doing the research for you. It's important. And yeah, ask for recommendations. Maybe, Domiuosi genealogija, this group is good. Like, people can recommend you things. I still believe that it's important to do as much research as possible, not on your own, like without help, but just that you do it yourself. Because there's one thing that you'll know what you're looking for, you can check everything, you kind of start to get to know these people, so you understand if someone is scamming you, like in this sense. But also, when we meet, we can ask each other questions, we can say hello, etc. We are not able to say hello to those people who already passed away, but we have a way in this process to get to know them. So even if maybe you cannot do it on your own, you have some, you just want someone to help you, I would still advise to follow the process, try to see each record, not to check everything, but just to be, how should I say it, to actually be involved in the process, because it helps. And then after that, maybe you can continue the research. And I see sometimes people say, okay, could you help me? I had this genealogist that I hired. They maybe found some records for me, made translations, and they see that there are mistakes maybe, or something was missed. So you need to find a person who has a good quality of the work that they do, and maybe they need to be, I will not say that they need to have a lot of experience, because sometimes a person who has a lot of experience might be not very good, but they should be knowledgeable, they should understand what they are talking about, and they should speak English, well, quite well, because otherwise some things might be just lost in translation. And what else? Yeah, I just, I try to tell people this. Not to say that you just need to go to my lectures or to hire me. No, definitely not. Actually, I don't do family trees. I mostly teach, because it takes a lot of time on its own. And I also believe that it's good for people to do it, ourselves, to get to know our family, to actually understand what was the life for them. But just so you know what to prepare for, and maybe, try to find someone you can rely on. There are good researchers. I even have recommendations, for specific areas. Like, for example, Užnemunė area, so this little corner, mostly it's the Suvalkija region. It has different history than the rest of the country, and it's a more difficult research. And sometimes, even if you hire someone, they might not find anything. So be careful about that. You should at first find out if it's even possible to find something out, because you might pay big money and then they will tell you that there are no records. So maybe that's not very nice, So then you need to learn if in this specific area there are records, because there might not be. So in this region, it's difficult, but it's possible to find some things, definitely.
Is there a site that you recommend for ships manifests? I have a couple relatives. We can find nothing, and they immigrated here. We know that, but we cannot find anything for them.
You would, of course, probably use those mainstream databases like Ancestry, Family Search, etc. I would say that the most documents that you can find is on Ancestry. Second place would be Family Search, which is free. MyHeritage doesn't have that many, actually. Well, they have some, and sometimes you might find something useful if you have the service, have the subscription. But you will not find some documents. Some of them will be only on Ancestry or Family Search. And also, if you cannot find the records, it might be the problem with the version of the name that they had written down on the ship manifest. That could be the problem, and when I say this to local people, I say, try Lithuanian version, but also try all the Polish anglicized, anything, anything that you can think of. Sometimes they are crazy. But
And try
also,
common spelling mistakes. I found somebody because they dropped a letter.
yes. So, sometimes it's really just you wouldn't even think about it, and then you accidentally find something, and it's and in the beginning, for example, my family example, Bacevičius, I had no idea I should put it like Butz. Like, how can you think of that? I understand now that it's based on the pronunciation of the first syllable, but like how? But someone helped me that at that time, and then I started doing more research. So yeah, it's just sometimes like that. Of course, sometimes these databases, they are good because they show us connections. It maybe someone already put them in a tree, then they show us that maybe these records are connected. So that's how we can try and do it. Why would my father's surname be different from his father's? Is it completely different or kind of looks similar but not the same? Because sometimes they would just write down the names with mistakes or just change the writing. They would just write it in a different way, like different version. If it's completely different, well, that one would be more complicated, and we would need to look at a specific case. Sometimes it could be that the family had double name and then they chose just one. Sometimes maybe, people changed their names when they came to the States completely. Um, I don't want to speculate. We need to look into that. Maybe they learned their father was not their father. Well, that's a possibility too. Um, what else? I would need to think about it. The father was a DP. Maybe they were raised by someone else. That could be a case too, and that used to happen quite often. So we'd need to look into it.
One more question.
Yes.
Yeah. If someone had come to the United States from Lithuania, and then they returned with their son for a
Yes.
visit, would they have had to register? Would that be recorded anywhere in Lithuania? Or would they just go as a tourist at that point?
Well, that's a good
I
question.
believe he was naturalized when he went back to visit.
I think
And
then they would go as tourists because
Just
they would
yeah.
have I forgot the word for it. Well, they are already citizenship. They would have American citizenship, right? So they might have been registered, but they would probably go only after Lithuania became independent. I don't think that they would risk it and go before that. But when they could go freely, then it would be interwar period, and yeah, they probably were registered as someone coming in the country. But if we can access those records, not really. So that's why I need to think about it because it's not so easy to just okay. The church in the town where my father was born in Vištytis burned down. How can I obtain a copy of his birth certificate? Likewise, that of his mother. So, okay, I'll explain this. If the church burned down, that doesn't mean that we don't have the records, because starting from around 1794, there was this law that required every church to have copies sent to their church government. Like that's why we have some books that are called deanery books or diocese books. So these are kind of copies that were made. That's why it's possible to do the research. But I would need to check specifically for Vištytis if there, what exists and in a specific time. But basically, you can try and order the record from the archive. You might find it or not. If you know a specific location, then it's all right. And if you know a specific year, but sometimes they might not want to look through the whole area or through a period of time, if you don't know if the year is correct, because very often the year that you have will not be correct, and they will just say, we didn't find anything, but you already paid. So sometimes they don't like to do this work of finding the actual year. Again, you can learn how to use the EAIS system and access it yourself. But then we need to look for a specific location what exists. Okay, how extensive are the Lithuanian records on myheritage.com? So, well, the records for immigrants, I mentioned that the least amount from all of them, but Lithuanian local records, none. Okay, yes, none. What is the best DNA testing to find Lithuanian matches? Okay, MyHeritage. You will find the most European and Lithuanian matches on MyHeritage. Some people test on Ancestry too, but these are people who are probably more interested. They are willing to pay the bigger price. They want to find some relatives abroad, and they know that maybe the bigger American database is on Ancestry, so then they do that. But MyHeritage is the most popular because it's the most affordable, the most available. Wasn't there a difference between a single person's name and the name when married? Yes. So as I mentioned, for women, there was a difference. So for example, what name should we use? Like the most popular Lithuanian name. So it would be Kazlauskas for a man. It would be Kazlauskaitė for his daughter and Kazlauskienė for his wife. There is actually a tool that was created by someone that can give you these versions, but also there are some details, to know, like there are these new forms of surnames now. So it's good to know about this, of how to make those surnames actually, in these different forms. Can other people edit my info in MyHeritage, and how does Genie differ from MyHeritage? On MyHeritage, you need to add them as an editor. If you haven't added a specific person, then no. And you can hide your tree and show it to no one. And on Genie, everyone can do anything. That's basically different. Yeah, someone in the Lithuanian group likes to say that Genie is like a bus and MyHeritage is like a taxi, where you just are on your own. Or my comparison would be, that MyHeritage is your own private house with a fence, and the Genie is a block of flats. Everything is, even maybe a dormitory, let's say. Everything is common. So maybe it's a better comparison. If in America the surname was written as Valiser, but a Polish priest wrote the name as Alesha, how do you think the name was written in Russian and Lithuanian? Like there are many possibilities. It could be Valesha, it could be Valesius, it could be even, I'm thinking, there are many names that start with VAL, and we would need to compare all the possible documents and see, what could be the original one, because there were no rules of how they used to change them. My father was the also received copies of whatever documents that had in the files from Allison archives in Germany. Yeah. If you have already done, you can upload. You cannot anymore. You cannot upload ancestry results to MyHeritage anymore. They changed their rules this year. Actually, didn't know that for some time. I was telling people, okay, you can, and then apparently you cannot anymore. They changed their everything basically, and now you need to do separate tests. Yeah, that's a bummer. Actually, I wasn't happy about that too. Actually, I uploaded my family tests some time ago, and then now you cannot do it anymore. You need to do separate tests. But, well, probably, they didn't agree on something and you changed their rules. So, is there the possibility that a person could be buried on their property and not in a cemetery? Well, typically, they would have like a village cemetery. and many of those are gone. And sometimes those cemeteries could be on a private land of some person living in the village, but they would allow people to bury their, family members there. And some of them are still there. If you visit Lithuania and you're driving on this country road or something, and you see that there is a field, but in the middle of the field, you see like a bunch of trees and like a little hill, that's an old cemetery. If there are crosses, or probably no, maybe a few, and there are no headstones there, so you will probably not find anything. Yeah, but these are these old cemeteries. DP means displaced persons. So those were people who were, well, they were running away from the Soviet regime. In many cases, they were people who were well educated and they knew what Soviets did with educated people. They used to be deported or any other thing. And they didn't want that, and they ran away. And many of them went to Germany, and there were camps for people who ran away. There were these zones that were administered by different countries like France and the United States and what else? I need to remember what were those other zones. There were 4, I think. So people really tried to get to the American zone because they knew that from the American zone it was possible to leave, because otherwise um, they could be returned to their country, and that wouldn't be good. Yeah. We did visit Vištytis in 2024 and went to the cemetery, but could not find anything. I also went to Vilnius University for the month of July 2025 to learn the language. It is not an easy one. It isn't, definitely. Also, Klaipėda University is doing summer courses. They're doing one in winter, and then they were doing also this year, it's in July that they're doing this. And they have 4 levels, so both for the people who want to start and for people who already learned some language. So yeah. Okay. So I think we are going to be finishing today. Now deportation to Siberia. Well, yes, I said, about educated people who were running away, many of them were, but also people who had land, or someone said something about them. These people are like against the government of Soviet Union, Oh, there were always snitches. And mostly they were just, they had land. What was it?
Can I just ask, I'm supposed to go in the fall to Lithuania. Can I physically go into the archives and look myself, or do you have to hire someone?
You can, but you need to know what you are looking for. They will not allow you to just go and look, you need to find the actual files, so the titles and numbers of the files that you want to look at, and they will prepare them for you. And you can look, one person can look at 10 files a day. And also, some of them will not be physical books. And typically, especially in the history archive, they do not like to give you physical books. So they will give you something called microfilms. So you will have, the screen that you need to look at, and it's really difficult. It's these, how should I say, that these, not machines, but like an apparatus. It's they are old, where they put these microfilms, and so that you can have a bigger view. So they are difficult to manage, actually. So if it's possible to look online, it's better.
Yeah.
There are some, documents that are not available online, then you need to go. But otherwise, I really don't advise to do that. If you want, to have this experience of visiting an archive, then better to go to the central archive and the special archive. But again, you need to know what you're looking for. You need to already have done some homework. So,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so after this record is uploaded, I am sending you an email with some links and with a recording. And you are welcome, again, you're welcome to join the courses where I actually explain how to, find the right files, how to access them, how to use the systems, even something about the archives too, how to know which archive includes what. So, it's easier then, because sometimes it's just difficult to research everything on your own just without someone telling you what to do and how to do it. So yeah, you're welcome to join and learn some more about the genealogy and culture. And as I said, feel free to join the community group, because sometimes I share videos there and some tips, some stories, etc. And also, the new lectures and the meetings. So yeah, hopefully we'll see each other again soon. And the next meeting is upcoming weekend, 1st of February. So have a very nice day, and
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.